मैं हिमरू के बारे में कुछ खबर, कुछ जानकारी देना चाहता हूँ। ये हिमरू कपड़ा दरअसल में एक तरह की ब्रोकेडिंग है। ब्रोकेडिंग को आमतौर से लोग किमखाब समझ बैठते हैं, जामेवार समझ बैठते हैं, कश्मीरी शॉल की तरह। लेकिन दरअसल में ये उनसे बिल्कुल हट के चीज़ है तो एक तरह की ब्रोकेडिंग। ब्रोकेडिंग के अंदर ये जरूरी नहीं है कि जरी के धागों से ही सिल्क के कपड़े को सजाया जाए, डेकोरेटिव फ्लावर्स की जाए। ब्रोकेडिंग कैन बी सिल्क with silk thread, on fine silk or thick silk, or thick silk with gold thread weaving, fine weaving. But Himroo is a cloth which was devised to look like a jameva, that is Kashmiri shawls. So since the Kashmiri shawls were not started being made for jamevars before the 1650, so Himroo also could be earlier than 1650. We do not find examples of 17th or early 18th century Himroo, but the Himroo has been mainly identified that it comes from Aurangabad. It is generally correct, but there were other centers like Surat, where a type of Himroo was woven and for a Nawab. So it was known Nawab the Himroo. Tiruchirappalli near Madurai was another center. In Himroo, the main characteristic and specialty is it is cold for cold weather, whereas the Kashmiri shawls were used in woolen in northern India or central India in the winter season. The cotton fabric used for Himroo weaving was spun cotton, and the type of weaving style imitated the shawl weaving. So outside from a distance the cloth looked woolen. The rest was silk. The silk patterns actually woven and they were floating on the background, means they were not interwoven, unlocked here or there, but then the whole length, the jungle of silk was there on the background. So the thick cotton fabric and the underlining silk fabric which gave the design made a packing. So it was always lined with some cotton or some other cloth to give body, otherwise the threads will stick with something and get destroyed. So these things were used, and the jamevars like Himroos made in Aurangabad especially came to be made in larger number when Aurangzeb shifted the Mughal capital to the Deccan in about 1680s. After that, large number of Rajasthani nobles, Mughal grandees migrated to the Deccan, and naturally there was a news because they were staying throughout the year. For the lesser grandees, the richer ones could use Kashmiri shawls or brocade with zari gold thread. But the next level of officials and nobles actually started using Himroo, so it became a great center where the designs were almost looking like Kashmiri shawl. Some new designs from the Deccan were also used. The Himroo was used mainly for achkans. It's a type of sherwani which was a later design invention in the late 19th century, the long coat. And sometimes even the ladies made pajamas with padded lining, so it gave warmth to the body. Jackets on the body for gents and ladies were also made in Himroo. The colors of Himroo being imitation of Kashmir shawls, the colors were either off-white light green, browns, indigo, and rust. So from a distance they always looked like Kashmiri shawls, because the large number of people who were now using Himroos in the Deccan, actually Aurangabad became a bigger center for making and marketing Himroo, but it always remained in the Deccan, a fashion in the Deccan. It was never used in northern India or central India. The yardage in which they were made, it was not made in yardage of 10 meters, 20 meters. They were always made in 4.5 yards. It is equivalent to about 4 meters and about 36 inches in width. So because of this, this was a standard cloth made either in brocade, zari brocade, or silk cotton, or silk with silk. So like this was used for making dresses. This was a standard length, 4.5 yards could make a full jacket. 1/3 of it was known pihai, and it was used for pyjamas or vests. So this was the fashion which continued. But after the Mughal war ended in the Deccan, actually number of nobles went back. But still, when the Nizam's court moved to Hyderabad from Aurangabad in 1762, some supplies were made from Aurangabad to Hyderabad. And many nobles, of middle class, used Himroos for marriages, for other functions. But these things slowly went out of fashion by the late 19th century, when the mill-made woolen cloth and other cloth was being used. So now these sherwanis, and they became out of fashion. And still, when I saw in 1950s, some nobles were still used the family heirloom sherwanis which were lying in their family. Whereas the Trichinapalli type was a very short-term production. Trichinapalli is near Madurai. It was a very short-time production. When there was a decline in the demand, the craftsmen were actually in distress. It so happened there was a historical incident when a Himroo was made. When the Sultan of Turkey died, it was not allowed to be buried in a grave for there. So Princess Durasawal, the daughter-in-law of Nizam, Osman Ali Khan, was a princess from Turkey. She went to Aurangabad to make place for her father's grave. And the craftsmen who know that the princess is coming, they came to her in large numbers that this is the problem we are facing. We know the technique, we know the style, and we can still do as much as possible, so please help. So she placed an order to go on making as many as possible. I have seen at least 300 thans of new designs, but unfortunately, some of the new designs, there was a limit. After imitating Kashmiri shawls, they started copying European wallpaper. So this was a downfall in the technique. The quality of yarn, instead of silk on cotton, they started using art silk. And art silk was being a cheaper material. Although the cost came down, suddenly after some time the demand also started fading. In 1950s, I saw the whole yardage was cut into two, or even ladies' shawls were being marketed by Lepakshi Emporium here. But even they went out of fashion because the other type of shawls started being introduced in the market. So then, since there was no demand, in that meantime, one film was made, Heat and Dust. So they wanted to have some fabric for the hero, and they wanted it. So it came to me, James Ivory and Ismail Merchant. So I suggested them to use Himroo. So they used in one or two shots, they now are wearing Himroo coats or sherwanis. but this was not. Those 300 pieces actually came to my notice. I saw them, studied them, but since they were no more in the fashion, only some collectors bought 5 or 6 or 10. So someone from Calcutta dealing in textiles, old textiles for collectors, bought the whole lot of 300 pieces. So after a gap of about 20-30 years, a very enthusiastic Surya Hassan, who has a workshop near the Golconda uh, Wali's Dargah. So in the Safrani Bagh, she started reintroducing and making employed some of the craftsmen to her workshop, and she continued to make some, and there was a small market for them. So this is the history of the Himroo technique, and this was marketed. This is how it was made in large number, and this is how slowly in the demands and changing place it went out of fashion.